Fanalysis combines the data made popular in fantasy football with the latest sports betting trends, and that's how we find you the sharpest angles, or I should say, that's how this man finds you the sharpest angles. The lead betting analyst from Pickswise, Jared Smith. Jared, good to see you looking dapper in your nicely, finely tailor-cut suit you got working today. So clearly things have been going well for you. You've been making the right picks, clearly, this year. So we're grateful for hearing all of that inside knowledge that you've been giving us. But I was scratching my head when I saw that this is the game that you wanted to start with as a best bet for you this week. The Colts and the Raiders might be the most unpredictable game this week. I mean, the Raiders just put two guys on the IR. The Colts just fired their head coach, and they pulled Jeff Saturday out of the broadcast booth to be their guy. So how do you even begin to handicap this game?
Yeah, this game's generated a lot of buzz, and from a side perspective, I understand why there's a lot of variance involved in this situation. We don't really know what we're going to get from the Colts. I think it's fair to say that their offense, regardless of who's calling the plays, by the way, Parks Frazier, 30-year-old passing game specialist, promoted now to play caller / offensive coordinator duties. He's never had a position higher than assistant at any level. But he's going to be the one calling the plays. I really don't think it matters who's calling the plays. You've got Sam Ehlinger, who's very limited at quarterback, and since they've made that switch from Ryan to Ehlinger, it hasn't been good. The Colts are the least efficient offense in the NFL. They're getting Jonathan Taylor back this week. So as unpredictable as that situation might be, I think it's fairly predictable to say that it's going to be Jonathan Taylor left, right, and center. The problem is Vegas' strength actually is defending the run. They're a top 5 EPA per rush team on defense this year. And on the other side, the Colts defense playing pretty well. Now, we did hear Shaq Leonard's going to miss this game. They've been without him for most of the year. They're kind of at that point where they've adjusted. Kwity Paye being the key guy back on the defensive end spot, because he is so good against the run. And the Raiders, without Renfro and Waller, they're going to want to set up the running game as well with Josh Jacobs. So both teams very strong against the run defensively. I don't see a lot of explosion on either offense. I love the matchup with Devontae Adams on Stephon Gilmore is playing like an all-pro corner this year. And I think this game is going to be relatively low scoring because of the pace and because of some of those uncertainties that are involved.
What's crazy is, I mean, yeah, the Colts go out and get Gilmore because they expect that they are going to have to stop these big passing attacks, and this is the receiver that is especially the biggest target or the toughest opponent that they're going to be facing this year. But just even more craziness in this game. Raiders linebacker Blake Martinez sold his mint condition Pokemon card and then immediately retired at the age of 28. What is happening here? What I don't know. How do you even handicap what is going on with this Raiders team right now?
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because that's the other side of it. And as crazy as this week has been, and frankly, it's been 3 weeks. I think, I'm not sure if it was on this show or one of the other various segments I do, when you kind of add up the 3 things that have happened for Indy over the last 3 weeks, starting with firing the OC Marcus Brady, then they bench Matt Ryan, and then the 3rd week they make the firing and the hiring of Jeff Saturday in basically a tandem move that just, it sent shockwaves, frankly, through the entire NFL ecosystem. But on the other side, the Raiders have been held scoreless in 6 of their last 8 quarters. They jumped out to a 17-point lead against the Jaguars last week. I know, I watched the game. We gave out the Jaguars last week, or excuse me, we gave out the Raiders last week, and then proceeded to, for the 3rd time this year, blow a 17-point lead. By the way, the Raiders franchise since 1961 has only blown 5 17-point leads. They've already done it 3 times this year. Something they've only done 5 times in the history of the franchise, dating back 70 years. So it's such a strange season for both of these franchises. But I think the one thing I'm certain of in this game, it's going to be a slower paced game. They're not going to try to put too much on Sam Ehlinger's plate. They're going to keep it simple and run the football. And then, of course, those injuries on the other side for Vegas's offense, I think this game will be played now in a phone booth, and I think both defenses equipped to stop the run. So we'll see how many big plays we get down the field. I think it's going to be a relatively slow-paced game.
Well, the unders trend continued, by the way, in Week 9. Still, 56% of all unders have hit so far this year in the NFL. All right, let's move on. And what's really baffling to me about this next game, it's the Packers and the Cowboys. What's baffling is the Packers are 5-point home dogs, but the pros expect the Packers to end this 5-game slide. What are they seeing, and where are you landing on this one?
Yeah, this is another one of those head scratchers. I think I have a better sense of the preamble heading into this game, and it's pretty emotional, frankly. And I think this is kind of the cherry on top of the handicap, but I'll start with this because I think it's very relevant to how both teams are feeling heading into this game. Mike McCarthy's return to Green Bay, he was getting emotional during the Wednesday press conference. And I'm sure once we get closer to game day and on Sunday, it is going to be an emotional day filled with distractions for him. And I think that right there is the foundation of where I can see this game starting to get away from Dallas. The second part of it is Dallas's defense, to me, is maybe one of the best units in football. But if there's one fly in the ointment, their pass rush is so good, top 5 in pass rush win rate, bottom 5 in run stop win rate. And it's kind of like teams that press in college basketball. You don't like to be pressed. Teams that get after the passer like Dallas does with their great defensive ends, they don't like it when you run straight at them. They want to be the one setting the tone on the edge. And I think that's the one weakness for Dallas's defense. Third in overall EPA per play, drops to 10th against the run. Well, Green Bay at their core run the football. We'll see if Jenkins and Bakhtiari are back. Aaron Jones' injury is important. I think A.J. Dillon's going to get some big run in this game. And you got to take some of the pressure off Aaron Rodgers because this guy's just between the ears right now. He's a dead stick. Now, we'll see if playing his former boss gives him a little bit of rejuvenated father time, turn back the clock vibes. I think it could. And I think Mike McCarthy makes at least 1 or 2 coaching blunders in this game that keeps Green Bay in it. And I think the tone of running the football is why the Packers can cover, maybe win outright.
You've watched too many McCarthy games, you know. But Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers does look like a quarterback that falls off the table. And we've seen this in years past. Rich Gannon wins the MVP. The following year, he falls off the table. I mean, you see quarterbacks in their final season, Ben Roethlisberger, you know, it happened with him. It happened with Matt Ryan this year as well. And it looks like Aaron Rodgers is falling into that same category of quarterbacks. When they hit a certain age, just one year they're MVP level, the next year they're nothing. But when you actually do look at the stats and you do look at like the, I guess the in-depth stats, here we are 10 weeks into the season and the underdogs are winning more than the favorites. As a matter of fact, every week this year, the underdogs have covered more than the favorites have covered. We talk about the over-unders, but we forget to look at the underdogs. This underdog element is a trend. It's not an anomaly.
No, and I think the reason why is you look a layer beneath and you look at scoring margin around the league being down. Average final score margin this year, 9.4 points. That's the lowest through 9 weeks since the merger. And oh, by the way, 72 games decided by a touchdown or less. The most in 9 weeks in NFL history. Favorites of 7 or more are 11 and 20 against the spread this year. That's a minus 31% ROI trend. It's never finished below 19% ROI since 2003, which is as far as my, point spread database goes back to. So it has so far been a historically bad year for big chalk, and that's because parity. I think more teams are a little more towards the middle of the pack, and there's less quote-unquote elite teams. And so these big spreads are very difficult to cover.
Okay, so that's why this leads us perfectly into the teasers, because this is why when you move the line by 6 points, moving the line by 6 points in the year 2022 means a lot more than even 2021. So this is a teaser. A teaser allows you to move the line 6 points in one direction for the team that you're choosing or another, but you have to back that up by playing 2 games with the teaser. This week, you're going with the 49ers against the Chargers and the Steelers. Wait, who do the Steelers play this week? I already lost it. Steelers-Saints. Thanks. Steelers against the Saints. What do you like about the 49ers and the Steelers in these 2 games?
Yeah, I'll start with the Saints because this one is a little more news-based, and it's on Pittsburgh's side, and TJ Watt's back this week, and to me, that's huge. I think that just sets the tempo a lot more than your average defensive end will. He not only is their best player on defense, but he's also the emotional leader. It's rare that you get both of those things in one. Most of the time, your best player, sometimes a quarterback, a little more detached emotionally from the heart and soul of the team, more execution, X's and O's. In this case, Pittsburgh's best player is a defensive player, and he's also the heartbeat. And they get him back this week. And I'll be honest, I'm out on Andy Dalton. I don't need to see any more metrics. I don't need to see any more analytics. After what we saw Monday night with this very good Ravens defense, I'm out on Andy Dalton.
That's primetime Andy Dalton, though. We know what Andy Dalton does in prime time. Zilch. Zero.
I'll tell you what, that's get pressure up the middle on Andy Dalton and him getting happy feet and throwing it to the moon. And I think with TJ Watt back, we're going to see a lot more pressure on anyone that this Pittsburgh defense faces, and I'm just out. So you're telling me in a low total game that right now is hovering in the 40 range, I get the Steelers off the bye as a home dog through both key numbers? Yeah, sign me up for that. The Chargers-Niners game, this game hopped up quick after what we saw Sunday. And it's kind of ironic, Steve, because the Niners didn't play on Sunday. They had a bye. The Chargers won on the road, covered some numbers, pushed the closing number of 3. But still, when this line reopened at 3.5 on Sunday night, bang, it took about 30 minutes to an hour to get it up to 6, and then it all of a sudden landed 7. I think this closes 7, maybe even 7 and a hook, because right now the Niners do one thing very well. They get after you defensively with their front four, and they don't need to send pressure with their linebackers and their safeties and, blitzing. Mm-hmm. Well, the Chargers right now cannot block a lick. Terrible successing rate against them. They couldn't run the ball against the Falcons last week. You saw what the Panthers did to the Falcons on Thursday night, running all over them. What do you think the Niners offense is going to be able to do up front against this Chargers O-line if they couldn't get movement on the Falcons defensive line? So I don't like the matchup for the Chargers up front. I think Justin Herbert's in for a long day without Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, who continue to miss practice.
Yeah, I missed on drafting Austin Eckler this year in fantasy football. That has not worked out so far for me, and I think you're right. This Chargers offense just is not the team that we expected them to be this year. That's how he values his best bets of the week and the teaser to look forward to. Check out our other segment where he focuses on the Giants and the Jets' futures. For Jared Smith of Pickswise, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.